2 years. Then I got there 5 years. They said to me, before we started, and that's a true story, before the project started.
Celine Dion's son was expected to follow in her footsteps. People assumed he would pursue music, that he would sing, and that he would naturally remain in the world where his mother became a legend. But René-Charles had different plans. By 24 years old, he finally revealed the truth about what he had been doing in secret for years. The family had kept it under wraps, protecting his privacy, while Celine worried and his late father would likely have been stunned. Yet René-Charles no longer cared about fear or disapproval. His admission this year finally explained why he had been so private and why his mother had guarded his life so closely. Celine Dion was born on March 30th, 1968, in a small town called Charlemagne near Montreal. She was the youngest of 14, children in a house that was bursting with life and noise. Her mother used to joke that there wasn't even room for another spoon at the table. With 16 people crammed under one roof, there was never silence, never space, only constant energy, movement, and shared everything. Celine grew up as the baby of the family in an environment full of chaos, surrounded by nearly 20 mouths to feed. Her family, like many in their neighborhood, lived in crowded conditions, noisy and poor. As she later explained, they didn't even realize how little they had because everyone around them lived the same way. There wasn't even a crib waiting for her when she came home from the hospital. Instead, her parents placed her in a dresser drawer lined with blankets. It wasn't a whimsical choice. It was simply all they could afford. There was no money for luxuries, no space for baby furniture. At the time, the average Canadian household earned about $6,000 a year, but the Dion family had even less and far more mouths to feed. Her childhood was shaped by financial limits and difficult choices. As she grew older, the house didn't open up. It only became more crowded. She shared a small bed with several sisters, sometimes 3 children crammed onto one mattress. With so many siblings, couches, floors, and even hallways were turned into sleeping spaces. She would later recall that the girls slept like sardines, packed tightly together every night. This wasn't a temporary situation. It lasted well into her teenage years. Her father worked long hours as a butcher, earning little, while her mother managed the household and sewed clothes from scraps and hand-me-downs. The family's life revolved around survival, not savings. And yet, through all the struggle, one thing was always present: music. Her father loved to sing, her mother played the violin, and even her name came from a song. They named her Celine, after a French ballad they adored, as if planting a quiet hope that one day their youngest child would carry music out into the world. But while music filled her home, the outside world was far less kind. At school, Celine was constantly mocked. She was thin, had oversized teeth, and looked different from the other children. They called her vampire, and the bullying was relentless. She later admitted those cruel years left scars she never forgot. She described the dread she felt each morning walking into class, knowing the taunts were waiting for her. Photographs from that time show a shy, withdrawn girl who seemed unsure of herself, someone trying to blend into the background. Even when she began singing as a teenager, the criticism didn't stop. Local tabloids ridiculed her appearance and cruelly nicknamed her K9 Dion because of her teeth. Though she was only a child, adult journalists joined in the mockery. While her voice was earning recognition, the headlines focused only on her looks. By 18, she decided she'd had enough. Quietly, she underwent dental surgery, braces and caps, and returned determined to be judged for her talent rather than her appearance. School itself had never been a happy place for her. She once said plainly, "I detested school." It wasn't only the bullying, she simply never felt she belonged there. Her true education came from her home. Her siblings became her teachers, and the dinner table was her classroom. She learned performance, survival, and the art of music from her family, not from textbooks or chalkboards. When money was especially tight, the Dion family didn't give up. Instead, they created a family band. All 14 children took part, performing under the name Dion's Family at local venues across Quebec. Celine was only 5 years old when she first sang in her parents' piano bar. She wasn't treated like a child star or a novelty act. She was a real part of the performance. By 12, she had already written her first song and recorded a demo. Her very first public performance was at her brother Michel's wedding in 1973. This wasn't just for fun, it was survival. The family's shows brought in much-needed money, but more importantly, they gave Celine a stage. While the schoolyard had made her feel small, the family basement gave her safety. After school, she didn't waste time with friends. She ran straight home to sing with her siblings. That basement, crowded with instruments, songs, and laughter, became her refuge. It was there she discovered her voice. It was there she learned to transform pain into strength. Every note she sang was her way of pushing back against a world that had mocked her. In June of 1980, a little girl walked into a small studio with her family. They had saved just enough to record a demo. It was nothing elaborate, just a handful of songs written with help from her mother and siblings. At an intimate age when most children were still wobbling on bicycles, she already had one focus: music. That day, surrounded by her family, she sang into a microphone, not realizing that moment was the beginning of a journey that would one day reach hundreds of millions of people. Her mother, Thérèse, didn't just believe in her daughter's voice, she risked everything on it. She mortgaged their home so they could send the demo to René-Charles, a manager known for representing Quebec's most famous singer, Ginette Renaud, whom Celine admired. But they only had enough money to send a single tape. If it landed in the wrong hands or got discarded, the opportunity would vanish. With 14 children and a father working as a baker, this wasn't a gamble. It was everything they had. And somehow, that tape landed exactly where it needed to. René listened, and what he heard stunned him. He later said it was the greatest voice he had ever encountered. Some claim he cried, others say he sat in stunned silence. But his response shocked everyone. He mortgaged his own house. Investing over $100,000 to launch the career of a 12-year-old girl with no stage experience. His friends told him he was insane, but he didn't care. He believed. By 1983, she was already rising as a star in Quebec, and by 1988, she had triumphed at Eurovision. Their first meeting wasn't even set up as a formal audition. When the Dion family arrived, René didn't have a real microphone. Instead, he boyap handed Celine a pencil and told her, "Pretend you're singing to a stadium." Without hesitation, she stood there and belted out "Ce n'était qu'un rêve" with all the force she had, as though 10,000 people were listening. In truth, only her family and one manager were in the room, but René couldn't believe what he was hearing. He later said she sang like she was standing on a world stage, and in that moment, her future was sealed. Between the ages of 13 and 18, Celine released 9 French-language albums. While most teenagers were worried about school dances and exams, she was recording hit after hit. At 15, she became the first Canadian artist to win a gold record in France with the song D'amour ou d'amitié. But at 18, she carried a secret no one could know. She had fallen deeply in love with her manager, René-Charles, who was 44. The age gap alone would have been enough to stir controversy, but there was more. She kept his photo under her pillow, staring at it every night, while still sharing a room with her mother. Her feelings were so overwhelming that they made her physically sick. She daydreamed about him constantly. She couldn't sleep. Though she knew it was impossible. René was twice divorced and old enough to be her father. Her heart wouldn't let go. The more forbidden it seemed, the stronger the love grew. Eventually, her mother discovered the truth. Thérèse Dion had always been her daughter's greatest supporter. She had launched her career, believed in her voice, and sacrificed everything for her. But when she realized her teenage daughter had fallen for a man nearly 3 decades older, she was horrified. This wasn't just an older man. It was someone who had been in Celine's life since she was 12. To her, it felt dangerous and reckless. She confronted Celine, perhaps expecting her to outgrow the infatuation. But Celine stood her ground. She told her mother, "We live in a free country. I can love whoever I want." It wasn't just about love. It was about independence, and she refused to let anyone take that from her. When she turned 19, everything changed. What had once been a hidden crush became a real relationship. Their first official date took place quietly, without the world watching. For years, Celine and René kept their romance secret. Only close family and friends knew the truth. They remained careful because they understood how harshly people would judge them. But behind the scenes, their bond only grew deeper. At the height of her early fame, Celine shocked the world by stepping away. She deliberately disappeared from the spotlight for 18 months. It wasn't a scandal. It was a calculated choice, part of her plan. part of her plan.